One of the primary things you're going to do with your Mac is probably browse the web. You're going to do that using a web browser, and the default one built in to macOS is Safari. Let's launch Safari here. And probably you're familiar with using a web browser, but let's go over some of the special features. Of course, to go to any web page, you would just type the address here at the top, press return, and you would go to that page. But you could also search here as well. So this is a unified field here where you can either type a URL and it recognizes it as a destination, or you type some terms and it recognizes that as a search. Usually because there's no .com and there's spaces and other things that differentiate a search term from a web address. Once you're at a page, whether it's search results or at the actual page you end up, you can just click on the blue underlined things to actually go to various links. Of course, web pages have the ability to customize how their page looks, so it's not always blue and underlined, and very often it's images that you're clicking on. But you're probably familiar with how to use basic web browsing. I should point out that the search engine you get when you use a term up here, like this, you can see it's Google. You have control over that by going to Safari Settings, and then you could look under Search and you get to choose from 5 different search engines. So you could use Google or Yahoo search engine, Microsoft's Bing, the privacy-centric DuckDuckGo, and Ecosia, which is also, I believe, using parts of these others, I think mostly Bing, and also providing an environmental benefit. And you can choose which one you like as your default search engine. But note, you don't need to always use this to search. You could go, for instance, to a search engine just manually. Like you could go to DuckDuckGo and actually do the search on the web page. So it's just the convenience of being able to search up here that is affected by that setting. Now typically when you're browsing the web, you're going to want to look at several different web pages. You're not going to want to just keep going to a new location here. You could open up a new window like this and have 2 browser windows open, even arrange them side by side and such. But more likely you're going to want to use tabs. Browser tabs have kind of become the standard now instead of creating multiple windows. So you have one window open like this. You can go to File and then New Tab or Command T. And now notice I've got 2 tabs here. And I can go to a different page here and easily click between the 2 of them to go to different tabs. And I can open a 3rd tab and continue to open tabs. So while doing research or just enjoying looking up information, you can have multiple tabs open like this. Note there are 2 different tab layout modes. This mode here, the compact mode, puts everything here in one line, and the field for doing a search or adding a URL so you can jump to a web page is the tab itself. But in Safari Settings, under Tabs, you could change this to Separate. And this is how it used to look for everybody, where you have the tabs below and the field here at the top. So the field represents the location that you see for the tab that is selected, and it's always there by itself. So this takes up basically 2 lines here, one for tabs and one for the address field and other buttons. Another thing you can do with tabs is you can use tab groups. So if you click here, you'll see the tab groups. I've got 3 tabs here in this default group, but I have other groups that I've created. If you click on the sidebar button here, it will take you to these groups. Note if you're in the sidebar here and you don't see these tab groups, say you see bookmarks like this, click this button here to go back up. And you can see these items down here at the bottom. So you may see your reading list, for instance. Instead, go back and you see the 3 tabs here in the default group, which is basically what you're using for everyday browsing. And then you can create these custom groups. If I wanted to put these 3 pages here into its own group, I can click this button and I can create a new tab group with these 3 tabs here, and I could name it something. And then I could get to these 3 tabs by clicking here. I have other tabs in this group. In this group I just have it empty right now. In this group I've got other tabs here as well. And you can use this control here to control your tab groups. So tab groups are more of an advanced feature, just a way of grouping things together. Instead of being here in your default group and having, say, 40 tabs going across here, you can have all these different groups and group them together by subject or wherever you want to organize them. You don't necessarily need to use this. You can browse around perfectly fine without using tab groups. In fact, I'm kind of in the habit of not really using tab groups. I rarely have more than a few tabs open at any one time, but others who like tabs may want to try to use it. Now notice when you go to a new tab or new window, you get all of this here, which is called the Start page. The Start page will show things like your favorites, frequently visited web pages, a privacy report, things in your reading list, and others. So this is basically the blank page. You haven't gone anywhere yet, so instead of just showing nothing, it's going to put some useful things for you here. You can control what's on the Start page by clicking here at the bottom right. And you can remove things like let's remove the privacy report, Siri suggestions, reading list, and just have favorites and frequently visited. You could also have a background image shown, so you check that box there, and then you get this little list here of background images, or you can click plus and add your own. So if you want to color up the background of this page, you can. Now, a handy tool in Safari is Reader View. Often you'll get a page like this. Maybe the text is too small. Maybe there are ads on the page, or maybe it's just difficult to see with navigation and other elements. You can go to View and then Show Reader. And it will take the article that's at the heart of the page and display it in this nice view here, complete with custom controls. You can see you can get to right here to enlarge the font size or change the background, change the font. And Reader View is just a nicer way to read articles on the internet. So you can always switch that on and off using this menu item here, or Shift Command R to go between Reader View and Normal View. When you see a page that you want to revisit frequently, you may want to add it to your bookmarks. Go here to access all of your bookmarks here. You can add a bookmark like this. You can rename it if you want. You can determine where it goes because you could arrange your bookmarks as you like. So let's just add this, for instance, to the favorites folder here and add. You can go then to Show Bookmarks and you'll see the bookmarks here in the sidebar, and there's the favorites folder there, and you could see this bookmark's been added and I can jump to that page at any time I want that way. You could also go to Bookmarks, Edit Bookmarks, and it takes you to this whole interface here where you could see all the folders and parts of bookmarks here, and you can edit them. You can go in, for instance, and change the name here. You can change the URL if you want. You could select it and then hit the delete key to delete, or if you control click, there are a bunch of different options you've got here for each one. You can also rearrange. You can move into other places. So you can create new folders really easily as well. I create a new folder under favorites, but I can move that here above and name this something. Notice here in the bookmarks folder I see something right there, and whatever I move into there is accessible through the menu. So I'll drag this in here and then I could access it like that. You also can view what is in the favorites folder, specifically the favorites folder, by going to View, Show Favorites bar. And this puts this little bar here, and any page I've bookmarked and put in favorites is now available very easily at all times in all Safari windows here by just clicking. So I can click on any of these to get to it, and if I have a folder inside of favorites and I click, I get the contents of everything that's in there. So you can actually put all of your bookmarks, if you like, inside of favorites and have the favorites bar turned on and access your bookmarks here rather than using the bookmarks sidebar if you like. It's really up to you. There are tons of different ways to access and organize your bookmarks. Another way to save a web page and get back to it later is to use the reading list. So under bookmarks you can add to reading list. And then you can get to the reading list here in the sidebar here. Click on reading list here at the bottom and you'll see everything you've saved to your reading list. And then you could go easily to it like that. Then if you want you can control click, right click, or two finger click on it and you can remove the item from the reading list here. If you scroll up, you notice you can search your reading list items. And also, instead of all, you can have just unread here. So every time you go to an article to read it, it automatically gets marked as read. And if you just view unread, you'll just see the things you haven't gotten to yet. So that's a handy way to kind of have this list of articles you've read but only be shown the ones you haven't gotten to yet. You save them to your reading list and then you get back to them once and then they get marked as read so they no longer appear if you have this set to unread. So you have two ways to actually save web pages. One is save them as bookmarks and the other is save them to the reading list. Both of these, by the way, sync over iCloud. So anything you add to your bookmarks or reading list should show up, say, on your iPhone, your iPad, or any other Macs you've got. And you have kind of this unified set of bookmarks and reading list that you can access anywhere. But it's also important to note that you don't need to actually bookmark or save to a reading list every page you go to. You can use your history to find places you've been recently. So certainly if you know you want to go back and read an article later, or if you know you'll be accessing a web page on a regular basis and want easy access to it, then reading lists and bookmarks are great to use. But if you just see a page that's interesting, you don't necessarily have to bookmark it or add it to your reading list at all. If you go to history, you'll see all of your web browsing history. And you can use this to actually find things you've seen before. So for instance, if you viewed a web page the day before, you can go back and jump to that. You can also show all history and it takes you to a page that looks very much like your bookmarks, but it's your history. So these are things saved automatically just because you went to those pages. You can select any item, control click on it and do various things with it. But if you double click on it, it will actually go back to it like that. In addition, it's important to note that you can search your history. So I can search for something and it will narrow it down and show me pages that match that search. In fact, if I were to just search here, by default, not only will I see Siri suggestions, Google suggestions, but I also see bookmarks and history, and it will search automatically for me what's in bookmarks and what's in history. So I never bookmarked this Wikipedia page about baseball, but it shows up here because it's in my history and I can easily get back to it. So usually finding a web page that you've already been to is very easy using your history and there's no need to bookmark heavily. So let's take a look at Safari settings. There are various things you should pay attention to. In general, this is where you would set up what new windows open with. They could open up with the start page or a home page that you set here if you'd rather do that. Or you could even do an empty page or the same page you were just looking at when you created that new window or new tab. You can set how often history items are removed. So this is automatically or just have them saved forever if you want. Under tabs, you can set what happens when you click on a link. If you command click on a link, here with this checked, it will open up the link in a new tab, for instance, which is very handy. Under websites, this is where you can go to have special settings for each individual website. So it'll show the website you're at now plus any websites where you've previously set up things. So for instance, for Wikipedia, I could have reader view always on. So every time I go to a page of Wikipedia, it uses reader view. I can also customize other things like whether this site has access to the camera or a microphone or my location, whether notifications are showing for this site. So you go to a site and it says allow this site to show notifications, and if you say yes but later you want to turn it off, you would go here to notifications and turn it off. So you can customize different things for different sites here in the website settings. So this is a very powerful feature that you should check out and familiarize yourself with.